The most significant thing about this spending review is what was not said, and that's that government borrowing now is almost entirely reliant on the Bank of England.
Our health emergency is not yet over, and our economic emergency has only just begun.
For me, the really big story here, which no one's talking about, is the sustainability of the public finances. Buried in the huge document that the Office of Budget Responsibility and the Treasury have issued today, there's very little that's being said about how the government can actually pay for this, because a lot of the way it's paying for it is through the Bank of England buying government bonds, so-called quantitative easing. Yet that phrase, quantitative easing, doesn't appear anywhere in the government documents that I can see. What they refer to just once is asset purchases by the Bank of England. And what we've seen since COVID is we've seen that QE program, that quantitative easing program, balloon from 425 billion, which is where it was early part of this year before COVID. It's now 875 billion pounds. So almost all the borrowing that the government's doing is being soaked up by the Bank of England, with the Bank of England buying that government debt. That's the big story behind this spending review today. And it's a story which wasn't even mentioned by the Chancellor at the dispatch box.
Underlying debt, after removing the temporary effect of the Bank of England's asset purchases, is forecast to be 91.9% of GDP this year. And due to elevated borrowing levels and a forecast persistent current deficit, underlying debt is forecast to continue rising in every year, reaching 97.5% of GDP in 25-26.
I think on the Tory backbenches, while they totally understand, I mean, even, John Redwood, the fiscal hawks, Ian Duncan Smith, these are people known for their adherence to the idea of sound money, relatively low government spending, living within our means. These are people who cut their political teeth under Margaret Thatcher. Even they accept, and I accept, that now is not the time to try and balance the books, to try and whack businesses that are fighting for survival with massive tax increases, or even households that are struggling to get their finances back on track as we look towards a COVID-free, hopefully, new year, certainly after the spring. That would make no sense at all. But there is a lot of concern out there that we're basically borrowing money with the Bank of England supporting that borrowing.